Well, good morning, awakening minds. I kind of borrowed that from Russell Brand. He has a bit of a catchphrase, good morning, awakening wonders. So I thought I'd talk more about the awakening in this video, which, whether you're aware of it or not, is the nature of the realm, or the paradigm, if you like. I guess it's a paradigm at the moment. When we talk about awakening, and I should get the social idea of awakening out of the way early, just for anyone who's not really into the spiritual stuff so much. I'm not talking about being woke or awake to government deceit or anything like that. We all know about that, which is why we one of the reasons probably we're pursuing awakening. Awakening on a spiritual level, awakening of the mind. So the world being the symbolic representation or the projection of the mind asleep, if you like, or mind in miscreative form, we find ourselves in a paradox where something that seems to exist in the physical nature shouldn't actually exist, because God is formless, God is spirit, all-encompassing and eternal. And so we find ourselves in this paradox, and the only way to really begin to process the conundrum of the paradox is to bracket the whole experience of, or the whole human experience, as a dream or an illusion, or if you're a Hindu or a Sikh, you might call it the Maya, which is the illusion. And when I say process it, the idea of processing can only be done in the mind, because it's your mind that tells you what it is you think you're seeing, where it is you think you are, and what your situation is, and all that sort of stuff. So there are really only two options for processing. One is to simply persist with the way things are now, which, when you're born into the world, let's say you're not really born into the world, you're dreaming of a world, and the identity of the avatar or the body or the person that you think you are within the world is simply a figure within your dream that you look out through the eyes of, and seemingly look out through the eyes of, and use to report back to you the nature of the reality you seem to find yourself in within the framework of the dreaming. So you either persist with it as it is, which is a very ignorant place to exist and process from, because as it is, the dream or the experience is one of deception. And the greatest deception, of course, is the idea of how it is that this is possible in the first place, or how it is that it seems to be possible in the first place if God is formless. God is spirit. So processing from the way you see things now happens from a perspective of duality, which you are taught from the time you're a child, as your parents were taught, their parents were taught, and everybody else has been taught, that everything here is factored on opposites, good and bad, right and wrong, day and night, mine and yours, better and worse, sick and healthy, rich and poor, just and unjust, all of these things. And there's nothing that you have within the world that doesn't exist as being diametrically opposed to something else in the yin yang of its own appearance or own showing up. God, on the other hand, or universal source, is a singularity, and you cannot find it within the world of duality. It's a different state, right? Mind is the whole state of itself. So when I find myself existing within or experiencing within a dualistic state, it's not that there is that state and then there's a me. I am, as mind, that state, because mind is whole. As above, so below, mind is whole. And I experience myself either from a split-minded perception or from a healed perception. The thing I like about the singular nature, or the God mind or Christ minded or Buddha minded perception or healed perception of self, is that in its whole state, it's a totality. It's uncompromising. Strangle a fig. It's uncompromising, and when you process from, let's say, when you process through the transition from the dualistic perspective of seeing the world through opposites to seeing the world simply as sacred, all of it, it's an altruistic state, and you deal with your processing in terms of absolutes. Now, a lot of people have said to me, oh, I don't like absolutes. It's funny how often I get that. And it's usually older people. And there's very much a my way or the highway kind of perspective to it. And I'm not talking about a my way or the highway as in Dave's way or whatever, but there is only the way. And in the confusion of the transition between duality or coming from duality to singularity, there is always this reconciling with the concepts. So when I say my way or the highway, I'm talking about it's either walking into the light or not. You're walking into the light. Good Lord. Rather curious. Still see things in the world that are curious. C1, curious one. And there's no alternative to that. You're either walking with Christ or Buddha or Krishna, or doesn't even have to have a name, or you're not. And that is actually, despite that a lot of people will tell me they don't like absolutes, that is actually one of the biggest reconciling helpers that you'll come across. So your mind is either at peace or it's not. You are either seeing the Christ in your brother or you are not. There's no half measures, right? Jesus says in the New Testament, either be hot or cold, but don't be lukewarm. So either be in or out, but you can't sort of sit on the fence. And you'll find many places where you're tempted to want to sit on the fence. Especially in places where you find inner conflict within yourself regarding surrendering a self-concept or a self-idea that comes up for you, and you start to recognize as being familiar for you in the cycles of your experience. But it's something that you value, you think is a good attribute to your character, let's say. But you have to remember that it all has to be surrendered. There's no such thing as a good attribute to your character. I have no idea where I'm going here. I'm just just following the path, literally. I've just taken my car to the service station to have a 300,000 kilometre service done. I'm walking back to Dad's, just in the general direction. I suppose I could put on Google Maps, but I just trust that I'll get there however I'm meant to get there. Faith, you see, faith always works. I don't know where I'm at now, of course. Seem to be at some sort of park. We'll go this way. So having an absolute is incredibly helpful. Christ-mindedness is an absolute. It's everything, right? It's totally inclusive of all your mistakes and errors. And at the same time, your mistakes and your errors and everything else like that don't affect your self-perception, because you're actually in a process of healing and process of awakening, and these things take care of themselves. You automatically kind of come under the auspices of grace, and that's one of the things. There's a little path down there. That's one of the things that I've noticed. Well, not that I've noticed, I mean it's the way it is. There we go, look. Surrounding area regenerated. This looks like a bit of a path. It's one of the things that occurs when you enter into transformation. There is I could be mistaken about this being a path. You bring all your baggage with you, and as you go you'll have incremental opportunities to heal, incremental opportunities to forgive. And in the forgiveness, in that action of forgiveness, everything that's associated with that cycle also gets cleaned up, also gets forgiven. There we go, bridge. And so it might seem that there's a lot to think about and a lot to be concerned about, but it's like pushing a dominoes. If you've got a line of dominoes and you push one over and all the rest, they just automatically fall. And that's exactly what happens with transformation. You follow one trigger to its obvious block, and learning to become aware of your triggers then is very helpful also. But you follow one trigger to its obvious block, obvious obstacle to peace, of which there are 4. The desire to get rid of peace, the belief the body is valuable for what it can offer, the fear of death, and the fear of God. And bit of bush. And you'll get a clear and concise viewing in any given circumstance if you follow your trigger to its relationship with those obstacles, which obstacle you're actually looking at. Now, in an overall sense, there is only one obstacle, which is a belief in separation. One problem, one solution. I think I'm separate from God. The solution is I'm not. So that's the dark night of the soul route. However, spiderweb, hound dog. So if you were to encompass the entirety of your transformation in one step, as occurs through the dark night of the soul, and from everything I've read and from my own experience and everything that I'm aware of, the dark night of the soul kind of just comes upon you as a point of total collapse, total psychological collapse. Another little bridge. And there's nothing you can do about it. And well, speaking for myself, I couldn't see it coming. I knew I was in trouble mentally. I had a sense of being in very deep trouble mentally. There we go. But generally, the transformative process is, pardon me, getting a bit out of breath all this walking. I don't do a lot of exercise or anything. I don't have any intentional regime of physical fitness or anything like that. So generally, most people's transformative process, as it says in the course, it's a slowly evolving training program. And each of your cycles that you will see, if you are aware of your triggers, will reflect off one of those 4 blocks in an idea of the relationship with the whole. Oh, hello. Beautiful dog here. And you'll be able to make progress and be able to see where it is you've been honest in your prayer for healing if those things show up again. Whew. Hello. Good girl. Good girl. Doing a job. Well, now I really have no idea where I am. So the idea of an absolute then comes in very handy. Prayer either is or isn't. And I know I talk about this a bit, but initially, and there's a beautiful supplement, actually, I think it's been released, the supplement to A Course in Miracles it's a little green book that was produced after the whole thing was channeled and published. The little green book was produced. It's only about a centimetre thick. There's 2 sections, and one of those sections is about prayer, and it's very concise, and it's got a lot more in it as a concentrated volume, a concentrated publication than the Course in Miracles does, even though it's still by Jesus through Helen as a supplement. But it was made, the supplement was produced specifically for psychotherapeutic practitioners. So psychologists and psychoanalysts and all that sort of thing, as an aid to the professional medical fraternity, I suppose, whatever that is. But most people's prayer in the beginning is prayer for things, and that, if you have a moment of upset, that then becomes prayer for healing, and often there is this kind of negotiating and bargaining with God through prayer. And ultimately, the prayer is for the miracle. I just want a miracle. I don't know how to get out of this situation, how to heal this situation. I don't know how to do anything about this. I just need a miracle here, without defining what you think the miracle ought to be, because if you do that, of course, it's not going to be a miracle. Don't know where I am. Have a funny feeling I've taken the long way around, but always a beautiful walk and a beautiful journey. So absolutes in prayer is helpful to see, because when your cycles come around again, when you start to see the same old thing that you think you've already healed, there's always an opportunity to go deeper. There's always an opportunity to process something at a deeper level, and you'll notice, and I could get caught up into talking about the slow time of the miracle and all that sort of stuff, but of course prayer, the witnessing to prayer, is received in exactly the same measure as the prayer is offered. And I've talked about this before in terms of weight, which is always an easy way to look at it. If you've got a 10-pound problem and you offer a 2-pound prayer, you may get 2 pounds worth of relief, but you're still going to have 8 pounds there hanging in your karma somewhere, and it'll show up again. But one of the things that happens, in a lot of people that have done the workbook more than 1 year will tell you this, and some of you will probably know this for yourselves. The next time around you do the workbook, those lessons are completely different. They have a much deeper resonance to them. They have a much more profound scope, and you find that you get a lot more out of them, which is how it was for me. But bearing in mind, Jesus says that at the end of the workbook, and now there are no more lessons because you have no more need of them. But as with anything, it's your own honesty and your own integrity with doing the work, your own determination and perseverance with doing the work, that brings the result. And for me, I saw a very half-hearted effort the first year around. So the perspective, Christ-minded perspective, is seeing the Christ in everything, altruistically, in these trees, in the people driving the cars. All living things are sacred. And I don't mean that in a way where it's special or it's amazing or it's anything. It's just the way it is. It's just actually how it ordinarily is, except that all of this time I've been seeing it wrong. All of this time I've been seeing it according to what I think it should be, breaking it up into bits and pieces and pigeonholing everything into this and that, and missing the joy and the wonder of the experience itself. So The vision of Christ is altruistic. And the perspective that I take on board when I meet anyone is that it's a holy encounter. I'm not meeting a body with, well, I mean, on the physical level, yes, of course, but in truth, I'm not meeting a body with its stories and its ideas about itself and the world. I'm meeting my holy brother. And in that perspective that I maintain as my mindset, then something else occurs in that meeting. Something else comes through. And sometimes you'll recognize it in retrospect. You'll look back on it and think how amazing it was, or you'll see that there was some kind of non-linear intercession there. But when I meet my brother as the Christ, and my brother may not even need to be aware of it and doesn't even need to be aware of it, but when I see the Christ in my brother, like this one coming towards me, there's a whole nother level of happiness and joy that's perpetuated. Kids going to school. A whole nother level of happiness and joy that's perpetuated in me, in my recognition of the encounter, that elevates the situation or enlightens that situation to a sphere of holiness, to a level of holiness. And when Jesus says in the Bible, when he's on the cross, "Forgive them, Lord, they know not what they do," that level of holiness transcends all errors of perception, all confusion about identity, all temporal association. It just takes all of that and puts it into one bracket, illusion, and just gently looks beyond it. So now I really don't know where I am. I think I'm going to turn left down here. It feels right. But anyway, looking at the world in terms of absolutes is the only way that you can keep honest track of your own progress, your own state of mind, until, of course, you have a shift. Once you have a shift in consciousness, then that's a rock-hard witness to the nature of change in your mind, and the idea then of having to apply the rule of absolutes to your worldly experience, where either something is or isn't reflecting your holiness back to you, falls away for a moment until the next trigger leads you to the next obstacle. Alright, I'm at a crossroad here. I think I've come from that area, so I'm going to go this way. There's a beautiful little creek in there. And the bottom line, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, of self-assessment or self-awareness, is either I am or I'm nothing. And I am, of course, being the Christ mind. I'm dreaming a dream, and I'm using this avatar to navigate it on this walk, in this particular case, where everything seems quite peaceful and joyous, and my mind is all good with whatever seems to be going on. even though I don't really know where the hell I'm going. All right, that'll do. got a Zoom meeting today with Tyna. We're going to test my internet reception at Dad's place, which is probably not great. Test my internet reception, make sure that I can maintain the Zoom on hotspot. Otherwise tomorrow I'll go and get a dongle, and then we'll begin or resume our Zoom meetings, which we haven't had for quite some time, according to the divine plan of all things. Familiar landmark over there. There's a ginnery there. I haven't tried their gin, but I'm not really a drinker. But I recognise the building, so I've actually done a big horseshoe. The quickest way between 2 points is now, but I haven't done that. Oh, the glowworm caves now. Yeah, I know where I am. All right, I love you guys. Be time for a hot chocolate and put the illusory feet up when I get home. Peace.